Hi, in this video you will learn about the linear equation and how to identify the formula of a gradient, the shape of the linear equation, and the domain and range of the linear equation. Hi guys, so today we're going to be focusing on linear equations, which you normally call straight line. Right? So what we need to know is the general formula of a straight line is y is equals to ax plus q, right? So the a is the gradient, or you can say it's the slope of the straight line, and then this q here is going to be a y-intercept, and then this x here is just your x value, and this y here is going to be your y value. Right? So let's first discuss the a, which we're saying it's the slope slash the gradient. How do you find the gradient? So we express the gradient as m, which is the change in y over the change in x, right? Which can be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's the formula for a gradient. Now, speaking of the gradient, which is a, right? Let's take a look at how our straight line looks when a is greater than 0. So when the gradient is positive, how will our graph look? So you're going to draw it like that. So the graph is positive, meaning that it is an increasing function. So the graph increases, right? This is y, this is x. And then if our a is less than 0, so it means that the gradient is negative. So how will our function look? So you're going to draw a function like that. So now this means that our function is decreasing. So when a is less than 0, and here when a is greater than 0. Now let's say our a, which is our gradient, is equals to 0. Right? So 0 gradient. So how will our function look like? So we draw the function. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. So because the gradient is 0, it means that if you are going to write the formula of a gradient, which is change in y over change in x, right? So if you divide anything by 0, I mean, if you say 0 divided by whatever number, then you're going to get 0, right? And this is change in y. So it means that the value of y is the same. So if y is 3 here, and it's also 3 here, then when you subtract, it's going to be 3 minus 3, giving you 0, right? For an example, so you're going to plot your graph here, right? And there is the 3. So meaning that here the value of y is 3, here is the value of y is 3, and here the value of y is 3 throughout. So now your gradient will be 0. So this is how your function will look like. It's just going to be a horizontal straight line, right? So that's how your function will look like. So let's say now your gradient is undefined. So basically it's unknown. Unknown, right? So you can't really define it. So it means that your function will lie in the x-axis. So if you draw your function, it's going to be either here in your x-axis or this side here, depending on the value of x. So if x is equals to 1, for example, then here it's 1, or if x is equals to -1, then this would be -1. So that's how you define a straight line in a graph format. So now we are going to identify the domain and range of a linear graph, right? So a linear graph, which is a straight line. So now let's say we're having a function like this. This is y-axis, this is x-axis, and our function goes like that. So this function is decreasing, right? How do you see that it's decreasing? So we start from the left hand side, which is this direction here, going to the right hand side. So we can tell that it comes from an up y value and to low y value. So it's decreasing, right? Or you can look at it in terms of the x values. It comes from a negative x value to a positive x value, right? So it is decreasing, or from a positive y value to a negative y value. Fine. So we want to identify the domain of this function here. Domain of a straight line. So how do you find it? So looking at both the x and the y values, but in this case, since it's domain, it means that we're going to look at the x values, right? So looking at the x values, we know very well that from that direction, the x values are negative, right? So they come from a negative point, and here the x values are positive. So to identify the values of x, we're going to say that the x values come from a negative infinity, because we can't identify the specific number of the x at which this function begins from. So it's negative infinity to a positive infinity, because we can't identify where this function will end. So to a positive infinity, and then you're going to put your brackets like that. Or you can simply say x is the element of real numbers, which is the same thing. Then to find the range, in the range we look at the y values, right? So the y values. So as you can see from this point here, the y values are positive, so they come from a positive value, and here they are negative, so they go to a negative value. So you can simply say y is the element of real numbers, or you can simply write, so they come from a positive infinity, because the y values are positive from this point here, and they go to a negative infinity. So that's how we define the domain and range of a straight line. Hi, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and click that like button below.